locate the purpose of Torah, why God gave us the Torah, what the objective, what it's meant to accomplish, where would we look?
Where would we look?
Yeah.
In the Torah?
Torah.
Where in the Torah? Obviously in the Torah. This is where. So, if we go to the story of the giving of the Torah, Parshas Yisro, which we're going to read on Shavuot this morning, we have the following account, that the Jews arrive at Mount Sinai on the first day of Sivan, and they camp. On the next morning, Moshe goes up to the mountain. This is on the second day of Sivan, and God calls to him and says the following. Atem Re'isem. Again, he tells Moshe to transmit this message to the Jewish people. Atem Re'isem, you saw Asher Asisi L'Mitzrayim, that which I did to the Egyptians. And I carried you on the wings of eagles, and I brought you to myself. Now, if you listen to my voice, you smart and you guard my covenant, you will be a treasure among all the nations. For the whole world is mine. Which I think means like this. Let's say, for example, I would go over to one of my children, and let's make it even more obvious. Let's say I have an only child, and I go over to him and I tell him, of all the children in the world, you are the most precious to me. Would that be very meaningful? Not really. I mean, obviously, he's the only one who's my child. You know, everyone else is someone else's child. So obviously, this one is more precious to me. To the ancients, the gods had jurisdiction over geographic locations. You had the god of this province and the god of this city, and so on and so forth. So the fact that the people of that district or that city were very dear to the god doesn't mean much at all. I mean, these are the God's people. Those are strangers the next town over. These are my people. So, of course, you're beloved, you're precious to me. So when God says that you are the most precious, obviously that is only meaningful in light of the fact that God is the creator and the source of all things. And therefore, God makes that clear. When I tell you that you are the most precious of all the nations, it's not just because it happens to be that you're my people. Kili Kalaris. The entire universe is mine. And I could have chosen anyone, and anybody, any nation, any group. I chose you because you're the most precious. And you will be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you should speak to the Jewish people. And Rashi comments, these are the words, lo pachos v'lo yoser, not less and not more. Exactly this. This is it. Don't embellish it. Don't edit it. This is the message you're meant to convey. So apparently, if this is God's introduction to the Torah, this is God speaking to Moshe in several days before the giving of the Torah, and he's giving Moshe a clue as to the coming attractions, obviously this is the message. Now, when we think about this for a moment, it's very, very perplexing. Let's contrast this to a similar statement that God makes elsewhere in the Torah. I mean, remember, what's God coming to do? God is coming to say that we're going to establish a covenant, and if you keep the covenant, this is what is going to happen. Well, where else do we have such a thing? Where else did God speak to someone and tell him that we're going to have a covenant, and if you follow the covenant, something is going to happen?
Yeah.
With Avraham Avinu. Okay, go back to Parshas Lech Lecha. And God appears to Avraham, and he says, Lech Lecha me'aretzecha, go forth from your land, the land I show you. But it's different. There, the promises that God makes are for Avram's benefit. Ve'es chalagai gadol. I'll make you into a great nation. Right? At this point, you have no children. But follow me to Eretz Yisrael, you'll have children. Va'avarechacha, and I will bless you. And Rashi says, what does it mean? I'll bless you. I'll bless you with wealth. Va'agad lo shemecha, and I'll make you famous. Now, we've had this discussion many times before, that why would a person want to be famous? But it seems that people want to be either wealthy or famous. That's really how we define success nowadays. We pointed this out also, that let's say I would tell you, you know my friend Michael? Michael is a big success. So you would take that to mean either he's very famous or he's very wealthy. But if you would discover that he was neither, you would wonder, in what sense he was a success? I mean, that's how we define success. Success either means fame or wealth.
I'm talking to my wife.
Lifestyles of the rich and famous, right? So that's what God tells Abraham. He says, listen, there's something in this for you. You follow me, you'll have children, which you haven't had until now. You'll be wealthy, you'll be famous, ve'yeh bracha, you'll be a source of blessing. Rashi says that means that not only will I bless you, but I'm going to give you the power to confer blessings. So you'll be able to pass down the wealth to other people. You'll be able to make them famous, and so on and so forth. We have them children. So back there, God is telling Abraham that I'd like to establish a special relationship with you, but there's something here for you. You're going to benefit. And in fact, Rashi points out the very word lech lecha, that lecha is a very, very peculiar word. Go for yourself. Rashi says that's exactly what God was saying. Lahanascha, this is for your benefit. I'm not asking you to do something for me. I'm asking you to do something for yourself. This is good for you. Well, if God spoke that way to Avraham, we would expect God to speak that way to Moshe. And he told Moshe, listen, I'm going to give you the Torah, and if you keep the Torah, there are all sorts of good things in store for you. You're going to be wealthy, you're going to be famous, you're going to be successful, you're going to be rich, you're going to be blessed. That's what we'd expect. What does God instead tell Moshe Rabbeinu? That if you listen to what I say, and you keep my covenant, I'm going to be very happy. But you're going to be very special to me. I will have what I want. He says, you'll be a treasured nation to me. You'll be, for me, a kingdom of priests. You'll be, for me, a holy nation. I mean, that seems a little, I don't want to say self-serving, but it hardly seems to be something which is very, very attractive. I mean, if I would tell you, listen, I'm going to give you a lot of commandments. You're going to have to work very hard, and what's the result? The result will be that I will really appreciate you. Is that enough? Well, I guess apparently it is. The question is, what really is God telling Moshe Rabbeinu? What he's telling him is like this, is that you reach a point in life where what you're really looking for is not success or wealth or pleasure. What you're looking for is meaning. You're looking that your life should have value. Value in whose eyes? Value in whose eyes?
My eyes.
Who is the arbiter of value?
In the eyes of that which you respect the most.
So that's the idea, right? In other words, we all want to be respected. We all want to be valued. But we want to be valued by people who really have an understanding of value. And just to illustrate this, for example, we know the famous Mishnah Maseches Yuma. It actually is a song which is sung in Lag BaOmer. That Omer Rabbi Akiva, said Rabbi Akiva, Ashreichem Yisrael. Fortunate are you, Jewish people. He's talking about Yom Kippur and the purity we attain Yom Kippur, and he says, "Lifnei mi atem mitarim, before whom are you purified? Umi mitar eschem, who purifies you? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He." And it says in the verse, "Mikveh Yisrael Hashem," which literally means God is the hope of the Jewish people, but also can be interpreted God is the mikveh of the Jewish people. Just like the mikveh purifies the impure, so God purifies the Jewish people. But what does Rabbi Akiva say? It's a wonderful thing. God is the one who purifies you. God is your dry cleaner. He cleans all the stains away. But more than that, you are pure by His standard. Before whom are you pure? You're not pure and holy by your neighbor's standard, or by the government standard, or by the media standard. Because you are pure and holy by God's standard. That's something special. It's God being infinitely wise and infinitely good and infinitely pure is the genuine arbiter of value. So if we are pure in His eyes, that means we're pure. Really pure. And the same thing here. If we are valuable in His eyes, we are valuable. And all too often we play to audiences which are insignificant by comparison. We want to earn the acclaim of our friends and our neighbors and our families and etc. And we're worried about how we look to them. But what God is telling us is that if we observe the Torah, we accept the Torah, we keep the covenant, because we will be valued by Him. You will be a treasure among all the nations. To me, you will be a kingdom of priests. You will be a holy people. And therefore your lives will have meaning and value beyond anything which is imaginable. And it could be that it took several hundred years to bring the Jewish people to the point where that was what they were looking for. In other words, even to Avram, God appealed on the basis of self-interest. He'll be rich, he'll be famous, he'll have children, and so on and so forth. But now, the Rebbeinu Shloim is taking it to another level. Now it's not a question of wealth or fame, it's a question of value and meaning. That's what God says. That you observe the Torah, keep the Torah, you will be precious and valuable to me. Now, God says, and we'll analyze these verses, says you'll be a treasure from among all the nations because the whole world is mine. Now God introduces that with the statement, you saw what I did in Egypt. Now, the simple interpretation of that verse is that obviously you see that I have an underlying love for the Jewish people because I brought terrible destruction upon the Egyptians in order to save you. But the Sforno has an amazing interpretation here. An amazing interpretation. And this is based on an earlier interpretation of the Sforno, which we've spoken about many times. That the Sforno says the purpose of the plagues in Mitzrayim were not to punish the Egyptians. The purpose of the plagues of Mitzrayim were to get the Egyptians to repent. Right? The Egyptians enslaved the Jewish people because they felt they had the right to do so. That this was par for the course for the Mid-Eastern dictators. And when Moshe comes and says, listen, I have a superior claim because I am the creator of the universe. I am the source of all existence. These are my people. You have no right to enslave them. Paro says, who is God that I should listen to his voice? So God is coming to instruct Paro as to the fact that there is a God, there is a source of all existence. That's the purpose of the plagues. It's really a function of God's love to get Paro to repent. And the Sforno says it over here too. He says, I'm telling you that you're the most cherished nation. That you should know how much I love all mankind. I'm going to tell you the love I have for humanity. says, let's go back to Egypt and see what I did to get Paro to repent. Because of my love for Paro. Think about that for a moment. Because of my love for Paro, I brought these terrible plagues upon him just in the hope that he would repent and straighten himself out. Exerted a lot of effort. And that shows how much love I have for the Egyptians. And on top of that, I'm telling you, but you are more precious than that. That's what the Sforno reads. These psukim. An amazing interpretation. So God is saying, I love Mitzrayim. I love all mankind. Everyone is made in the image of God. I love them. But I love you more. And you will be a Mamleches Kohanim V'Goy Kadosh. You will be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. And the interpretation of kingdom of priests is a very, very, very interesting thing. Rashi says that Kohanim in this context means sorim, means dignitaries. But there's another interpretation which the Sforno writes. The truth is, this interpretation already was said by the Rambam. It's cited by the Rambam's son in his father's name in his commentary to the book of Shemos. It says an amazing, amazing interpretation. It says like this. The Jewish people were chosen to be the priests that would minister to the rest of mankind, the rest of humanity. And let's understand this very deeply. The Ramban talks about this in the book of Devarim. The Ramban says that really, when God created the world, Plan A did not involve the selection of a subset of humanity. There was no Jewish people meant to be. When God created the human race, his intention was that he would have a relationship, an intimate relationship with all humanity. But the human race failed. It failed in the Garden of Eden. It failed at the time of the flood. It failed at the Tower of Babel. And God now activates Plan B. Plan B is that he will select a subset of humanity to bring the entire world to virtue, the entire world to truth. And God scoured, examined every last person on the planet to determine who the most qualified person would be, and he found one person named Avraham Avinu, and chose him to establish a nation that would bring truth, morality, ethics to mankind. And believe it or not, we've been wildly successful. Not as successful as we could have been, but wildly successful nevertheless. Wherever Jews have been in contact with other nations, they've transmitted their values, they have weaned them from paganism, they've brought them to monotheism and ethical forms of monotheism. So our so-called daughter religions, Christianity, classical Islam, is a monotheistic religion which is an ethical religion. It's radical form nowadays. Can't speak much for it, but certainly, at least in a theological sense, it is a true religion. It believes in the one God. And there are errors that crept in, as to be expected. When you play telephone and you transmit a message and it's transmitted from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, invariably there's some corruption. But that's really what happened. In places where Jews did not live, in the Far East, India, China, etc., people still practice paganism, idolatry, literally. They would never wean their way to a higher form of religion. But that was the plan. That is the plan. That there should be this subset of the human race that would bring all mankind to virtue. Now, if you're given a mission to do something, if you're trying to transmit a value which is not already universally acknowledged, you have to be a true believer yourself. Let's say, for example, President assembled, I said, listen, there's a big problem out there that animals are being mistreated. So 10, 12 of us here we're going to really work towards the improvement of conditions for animals. We're going to campaign, we're going to lobby, we're going to preach, we're going to influence people, we're going to change the world. We're going to transform the world's attitude towards animals. Now, if we're going to do that, we really have to be on fire ourselves and be very passionate about our cause. We have to have perhaps uniforms and at least bumper stickers and brochures and the rituals for our meetings when we get together to reinforce our commitment, and annual conventions, and study texts that inspire us to work for this noble goal. I mean, obviously, because you can't just be a person who accepts the idea of animal rights if you're going to try to transmit this idea. So you have to be a very, very passionate, a very, very involved person. And that's essentially the idea. Because when God related to all mankind, He didn't give them a Torah of 613 mitzvahs. He gave Sheva mitzvahs, He gave 7 basic mitzvahs. If you observe those 7 mitzvahs, you're a decent moral person. There's a respect for human life, you don't commit murder. There's a respect for property, you don't steal. There's a respect for marriage, no adultery or incest. You establish a system of law. You don't practice idolatry. You don't curse God. You even have compassion on animals. You don't tear off limbs from live animals to eat them. You slaughter the animal before you eat the meat. Basic decency, basic goodness. And that would have been enough. That would have been fine. But if we are going to transmit those ideals to all humanity, we have to be really on fire. So we need 613 mitzvahs. We have to live, eat, breathe, smoke our religious values, and then we have a half a chance of being able to bring the message to all humanity. So therefore God gave us the Torah. And God says that the purpose of this Torah is you'll be thereby among Lechas Kohanim. You'll be a nation of priests. Just like a priest is the functionary that goes between God and man. So likewise, we will be the priests for all mankind. We'll be the middleman between God and the rest of humanity. That's the idea of Lechas Kohanim. But we'll be a Goy Kadosh as well. In other words, our value to God is not only instrumental. It's not only because we will bring everyone else to Him. Because God will respect us and love us because of our own holiness, our own qualities. We'll be a Goy Kadosh. Now, one might have raised the objection that the order should have been reversed. Now, first, we should be a Goy Kadosh, first a holy nation, then we function as a kingdom of priests. But it puts it this way: first we're a kingdom of priests, and then we're a Goy Kadosh. And this points, by the way, to I think a fact that is a truth that we don't like to face up to, which is this. I'll give you an example: the Mormons. In Mormonism, I think basically all young people in their early 20s are expected to do a year or two of missionary work. And they go out and they proselytize. How do Mormons proselytize? They knock on doors. And they try to teach people about Mormonism and so on and so forth. What is their success rate in winning converts? Have any idea what the success rate is?
Probably not too high, I don't think.
Like, you think they are Makarev 50% of the people they meet?
1%?
10%? 1%?
Yeah. A couple of Jews, maybe.
Virtually nobody. Nobody. Right? Their success rate is statistically close to 0%. So you ask the Mormons, so why do you do it? Why do you send these kids out on this mission to spread the message of the religion? And you know you're not going to be successful at all. People will slam the doors in their faces. People aren't interested. Sometimes people will amuse them and listen, but they're really just humoring them. What's the point? So what's the answer?
It's for them.
It's for them. In other words, it has nothing to do with the fact that they're going to convert people. when they go out and they spread the message, it changes them. When you have to become a spokesman, you have to present what you believe. You have to express your values. It deepens your own commitment. And that's the idea that we are scared to face up to. We're scared to face up to. Because we tell ourselves that we can't involve ourselves in outreach because first we have to be perfectly righteous and supremely qualified ourselves in terms of scholarship and every other commendable personality trait, and then we can go out and be makare, then we can reach out to our less knowledgeable brothers and sisters. But first we have to achieve a relative level of perfection ourselves. And since we haven't done that yet, it would be a crime, it would be a travesty if we would go out and try to influence other people. We're an Torah, so I think it's appropriate to quote Rabbi He used to say, if you know Aleph Beis, teach Aleph. Okay, you might not be comfortable teaching Beis, because that's already the frontier of your knowledge. But at least Aleph you can teach. That's all you know, share it. Share it. Reach out to another person. But it's more than that. It's that through the process of sharing your knowledge, through the process of sharing your understanding, your passion, your understanding, your appreciation will be deeper. You will grow as a Jew in the process. And I think that's what God is saying in this pasuk, that we're given the Torah, we are meant to be a mamlechas kohanim, but as a consequence of that, we will become a Goy Kadosh. We will become a holy people, inasmuch as we function with a consciousness that we are ministering to the world. Now, let's understand that it may be a historical question whether Jews once upon a time did more proselytizing than they do today. Now, there are some scholars that say that once upon a time Judaism was very much a proselytizing religion. Tends to be the case now. And we tell ourselves because it's not necessary. Whereas if we really would exemplify our values, the entire world would come running to learn from us. And let's say that's true. That's how we have to live. In other words, we don't have to live like Kohanim actively, but we have to live with the consciousness of being Kohanim. So we have to live our lives in a way that is an ongoing transmission of a positive message. We have to be polite, we have to be courteous, we have to be friendly.
Sound like Boy Scouts.
We have to be honest in our business dealings, etc., 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 to the extent that that will be a positive influence. And even though initially we're doing it not as a function of internal conviction, we're doing it because we want to make a positive impression on others, but that consciousness, that acting, if you will, ultimately does penetrate and sink deeply into our own hearts, and it transforms us. So from being a mamlechas kohanim, we become a Goy Kadosh. From being a kingdom of ministering priests, we in turn become holy ourselves. Now, I think this is what we have to be aware of. I think a lot of people have this impression that Jews are admired and Jews are respected and our virtue is universally acknowledged. But like anybody who reads the newspaper, that illusion would be shattered. Because we live in a time where week after week there is scandal after scandal, things that are so embarrassing. If we would live with a consciousness of the fact that we are mamlechas kohanim, that by example we can inspire others, and this is really our mission on earth, is to bring this about, then ultimately we would be a Goy Kadosh. Our internal convictions would catch up with that. And that really is the theme of the entire Torah. That's what God said to introduce the Torah.
Isn't the point of what's going on in the sense that regardless whether you're a holy nation or not, the world will focus on you?
I think that's true. I think that's true. But I think that we have to understand that the idea of bad PR is not simply that bad PR creates inconveniences. It's not simply that bad PR results in anti-Semitism, and anti-Semitism results in discomfort, and we have to try to avoid it. But it's much more than that. It's that when we act inappropriately, we are going against God's very objective in having given us the Torah, which is a lot more than just avoiding the backlash of anti-Semitism. To avoid anti-Semitism, we just have the ADL work double time. That'll solve the problem of anti-Semitism, but it's more than that. We're not living up to our purpose. We're not living up to the responsibility God put on us when we act in a manner which is less than exemplary. Okay, so these are the introductory words to the Torah itself.